Hello, everyone. Oh, yeah. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is April the 2nd, 2021. It is opening day, which we go crazy about in Baltimore. But they're playing up in Boston. It got rained out yesterday. Strong hand, long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. Unconfiscatable. I'm offended by selling. In motion, 5-digit realm. All right, we've got quite a group. Best guest in the space I bring you every freaking week. These dudes have conviction. These guys have strong hands. And we have two guys new to the panel. All right, Joe Kelly is here, and Will Clement is here. Is that how you pronounce your last name? And Brecky Von Bitcoin is here, and he's been here plenty of times. So I'm always pumped to get new guests, and these are some unique guests too. I mean, Will is only 19, so we'll get into that in a second. But let us start off with a question that I read about on Twitter. And all these guys are linked to below. Follow them on Twitter right this darn second, all right? And Brecky had a question. He said, yesterday my parents told me I should sell some Bitcoin and buy a house. I told them we are in a housing bubble and that instead we should all be buying more Bitcoin. Joe, what do you think about that statement? Should we be buying houses or Bitcoin? How should one address one's parents when
or should I take out a loan from Unchained Capital and use that to buy a house?
I was going to say, Brecky, yeah, stealing my thunder there, but ultimately I'm a little biased. I think you should certainly not sell your Bitcoin. We exist to help people hold on to their Bitcoin for the long term. And one of the ways we do that is we give loans against it. And one of the principal things people do with those loans is buy real estate, buy a home. So it's a great way to keep on your Bitcoin, keep a hold of your Bitcoin while having a roof over your head.
All right. So you didn't. You gave it an interesting answer. It was you gave like the C. Like there was A or B, housing or Bitcoin, but you said C. So that's good. I like that. That's creative. Now
Bitcoin gives the options, man.
All right. Now, how about you, Will? You're buying a college education right now. But what do you think about housing versus Bitcoin and talking to your parents about that in terms of asset acquisition?
I think what you should be doing is measuring the housing price in Bitcoin, and then you might be a little surprised with what you see. So I would say buy more Bitcoin.
Valuing his wealth in Bitcoin at a young age. This is a good start right there. Well, before I get to Brecky, because you've had a lot of time to think about this opening question because it was posed to you, I just want to say that for me, I buy the best assets that are out there, okay? I only want the best for me. I want the freest asset also, okay? So housing, it's better to have a house than to have a freaking a stack of dollars in your bank account because they keep on printing the dollars, obviously. But I mean, our sociopathic leaders that are out there, they are raising the property taxes. A house is an attack vector. You can get sued. Someone can trip on your house or on your sidewalk and sue you. With Bitcoin, it's in the ether. No one's going to trip on it. It's not an attack vector. So I like to be in motion. A house anchors you down. And again, I have all these people around me that are very excited about the housing prices. Great. I am not in the buy. People are like, Adam, you apparently have some Bitcoin. You should be buying a house. No. Because I love to be free. I go from one Airbnb to another. That's how I spend my fiat. I don't spend, and I keep on getting more Bitcoin. Have more Bitcoin than you had yesterday. Pound that like button. Brecky, what was your take on the question that your parents posed to you there?
My take, I mean, I'm just going to buy more Bitcoin. I'm not buying a house right now. No way, no how. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe I could be convinced to take out a loan with Unchained, but I need to understand the product more and when is a good time to take out a loan and when isn't. So we'll see. I'm just stacking sats.
Wow, this really opening question. Oh, sorry.
Adam. I like the way you put it. It's like a turn on that Buffett quote. You should always go to bed with a few more sats than you woke up with. I think that's a good.
I like to say that we all say number go up, right? But the real number that needs to go up is the number of sats you have. So as long as every day that number's going up, boom,
Well, I mean, that's the very definition of valuing your wealth in Bitcoin. You're not trying to get more dollars, and most people are stuck in that mindset, and they want to get they'll loan out their Bitcoin to get interest on their to get dollar interest. It's all sorts of craziness I've heard out there. Just value your wealth in Bitcoin. All right, so let's go to I mentioned to Will before the show he just turned 19. So back in 2013, he was 11 years old, and back in 2013, Coinbase started, and that's how I got my first 2 Bitcoin back then when he was 11. And so clearly a lot has changed because, well, now, I mean, you're a guest on this show, and Coinbase is going to go public on the 14th of April. And that is it is in 12 days. It's linked to below. They're going to have release their earnings on the 6th. So this is going to be huge for marketing of Bitcoin. Okay, there's no doubt about it. On that Wednesday in 2 weeks, it's going to be on all the mainstream financial news networks. It's going to be a Bitcoin day. So it's just amazing to me how the Bitcoin world, you can say the cryptocurrency world, whatever, has expanded since 2013. So we're on the verge of something, and to have a company that's that OG of a company. I mean, I remember with everyone, a lot of guys, and you can say what you want to say about Coinbase. All of you will get your take on it. It's an altcoin casino. It's this, that, and the other. I can remember back in the day, maybe it was 2015. The big question is, when are they going to finally list Litecoin? When are they going to finally list Litecoin? Because all they sold was Bitcoin back then. So, Joe, you've got your own company down there in Austin and everything. What is your perspective on this, on a company like Coinbase going public, what it means for Bitcoin, what it means for the evolution of the space?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think especially for the kind of venture capital ecosystem that's out there and looks to big exits and returns like what Coinbase has brought as like cause for investing more money in the space. And so I think I do expect that to lead to more checks getting written into hopefully, especially Bitcoin companies. It'll probably be a lot of like just cryptocurrency generally companies. So yeah, and that's going to make a lot of these people that were in Coinbase very wealthy in dollars at the time of the IPO. And I expect that to do something as those people try to turn those dollars into Bitcoin, probably other cryptocurrencies. One might argue, given Coinbase's brand, it might be some ETH skew there, but I think it's still going to be good for Bitcoin.
All right. Good reminder there that the dudes that worked at Coinbase that got paid in stock options, they're going to be loving life. It's going to be like freaking 1999, 2000 stock options type of stuff going on over there. And yes, dudes, Charlie Lee is probably going to become richer. And you yourself should try to, don't worry about Charlie Lee becoming fiat richer because he worked at Coinbase one day and he sold his Litecoin that some people are still bitter about. You try to have more Bitcoin than you had yesterday. Don't be envious. This income inequality, don't worry about it. You worry about it. Take care of yourself. Will, what is your take on Coinbase? You've grown up with Coinbase, basically. I mean, it was you were like a preteen when it started. So your take is one that I want to hear.
Yeah, sure. So I don't think I have a lot else to add other than, for kids my age, when everybody's coming to me and saying, hey, I want to get into Bitcoin, what platform should I navigate through? I think the one everybody knows is Coinbase. And I think having them go public is a net positive for the space because although a lot of people in the space like to push forward securing your own keys, et cetera, there are going to be kind of layers of adoption that come to be. For example, like investors were able to get access to exposure to Bitcoin through the convertible debt notes that MicroStrategy had issued. I think this is another kind of layer of exposure that people are able to get to the space that isn't directly through buying Bitcoin.
Yeah, it is. That's a very good point. Now, I don't approve. I wish people would just buy the real thing, but you better believe there are going to be a lot of people like, oh, look, now I can buy just a regular stock. And it's just like buying Bitcoin. And it's not, but that will help Coinbase. They will be the one the one that will be able to provide that gimmick. Well, MicroStrategy's got their round, as you said. MicroStrategy is one way of looking at it too. But MicroStrategy is not a Bitcoin company. This is a cryptocurrency company. All right. So speaking about cryptocurrency company versus Bitcoin company, this is a good way to segue into what Brecky is going to say about Coinbase going public.
How do you know what I'm going to say about?
Because you work for Swan. You work for Swan. Put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone. Overall, net positive for Bitcoin. I think it's going to bring a lot more eyes to the space. I think it's de-risking Bitcoin even further. I am slightly worried what Coinbase is going to do with extra money. But I think that going forward, what I'm really interested to see are the checks that are going to be written to other companies. This is an opportunity for anyone who's building in Bitcoin to get out there, to raise money, to build on this hype. I may not like Coinbase. No, it's not that I don't like Coinbase, but let's take advantage of this. If you've got a Bitcoin company, go out there, raise money. This is the time to shine and to really cement our place in the fabric of the world economy. So it'll be interesting. That's all I got. Net positive, but I'm still wary. So we'll see.
All right. Be ready for a price jump that day, people, for you fiat freaks out there. Hey, man, we made it through the first quarter of the year. Now it's the second quarter, dudes. Is this are we one day closer to? Yeah, we are one day closer to an all-time high. I do want to point out to everyone that this year, on a few Saturdays, we've reached all-time high. So I'm not making any predictions for tomorrow, but be ready. Second quarter, first Saturday of the second quarter is tomorrow. So just already wishing you guys a happy weekend. And that really, because I'm looking at the, again, I value my wealth in Bitcoin, but I'm looking at the price right now and all sorts of people making predictions about, you got a swan on your head there too. Wow.
I do.
I just know that's a really subliminal way of promoting what you're doing. Okay. And I do wonder what companies Coinbase will be acquiring in the near future. Okay. So let's move on to what I wanted to bring up with Will here. And well, Will is the youngest guest ever on this show. I think the previous was 20 or 21 or 22. I don't know. But also a dude in college. But you are down with this supply shock thing, man. Long-term Bitcoin holders have stopped selling. I'm just quoting some things that you said. Bitcoin supply shock incoming. Yes, this Bitcoin cycle is different. It boils down to supply and demand. In 2017, there was a steady increase of Bitcoin on exchanges along with price, while in the current run-up, we've seen a dramatic decrease in Bitcoin on exchanges inverse to price. Now, okay, I just want to say 4 years ago, you were 15 years old, so I don't know how did you get into Bitcoin, by the way? And then let's talk about supply shock.
Sure. So I had originally gotten into like value investing, discount cash flow based kind of value investing. And long story short, what I understood from that was that you are assuming that there's sound money that you're making economic calculation with, right? And so that kind of led me down the rabbit hole towards Bitcoin. But to go off of what you were saying, so yeah, when you look at the data going back to 2013 and 2017, you had these small decreases in coins being pulled off exchanges, which kind of assisted in that supply shock. But what we're seeing now is kind of unprecedented in terms of historical data that the slope downward of coins that are being just ripped off of exchanges is continually going down. I think Coinbase is down almost 200,000 coins now in the last 4 months, especially after all-time high. You just saw that number kind of just fall off a cliff. It could be due to several things, including, that probably just custody solutions that people are moving their coins into. So it's not necessarily all just people ripping coins into their own cold storage. It could be multiple things. Also derivatives, which some of these coins are getting locked up into derivatives contracts. But to go off of just the coins being pulled off exchanges, we're also seeing miners over the last maybe I would say 2-3 months, have really stopped selling. Like right after all-time high, right in like the 27K to 32K range, you saw them really ramp up their selling. They started dumping coins onto the market. And then after that, they just completely stopped. And so this is kind of different compared to previous cycles where miners were just consistently selling all the way through, because I think now they can kind of finance their operations through debt and these other kind of fiat-based thing where they can borrow against their Bitcoin, right? And they don't have to sell to cover their CapEx. And the final thing is that another trend I'm seeing is long-term sellers have actually stopped selling. And similar to miners, they started peaking, selling right after all-time highs. They really ramped it up again around like 27,000 to 30,000. That was where you really saw this huge decrease on the chart. It basically shows the extent to which they're selling their coins. It's a chart called a liquid supply. So the further down the chart goes, the more people are selling. So you saw a massive decrease around 27,000 to 30,000. Then after that, they just completely stopped. Like it's insane how that chart basically you saw this huge decrease, and then right after that, it just bounced right back up, which meant whatever they were going to sell or whatever, they were planning to dump on the market, they already did so. Now they're waiting for higher prices to trim some more of their positions and take more chips off the table. And the final thing is that I'm seeing, is, especially in the last 2 weeks, last week we saw a record of this, actually, a one-day record of this, coins being moved to illiquid addresses. So Glassnode has this metric where they measure certain wallet addresses that have been holding Bitcoin for X amount of time, that they take the proportion of how many coins they sell versus how many they don't sell. And if it's under a certain, I think it's like 0.25, then they're considered an illiquid address. So we've seen this huge transfer of coins. And last week, like I said, we had this record day of coins being moved to these illiquid addresses, which you can also think of them as strong hands, as the Bitcoin community likes to put it. So we're seeing everything is lining up for this kind of massive supply shock on a scale that we've never really seen in Bitcoin. And I don't think we've seen, when you look at the chart compared to the price, it is basically inverse, right? As coins are going down off exchanges, price continually goes up. But I really don't think we've seen the full extent of this supply phenomenon, because I think we'll see the full effects of it when we start to see more institutional demand later in the year. Because I think, like we had MicroStrategy doing their education and all the, like, for these big corporations, it takes months for them to be able to get from the point where they say, okay, we want to buy, to where they actually are making that purchase. So I think we'll really see the full effects of the supply depletion months later on. And by then, they're going to have to come in and they're going to be fighting over fractions of a coin. And so I think we really won't see the full effects of this supply shock until later in the year.
All right. Long-term Bitcoin holders have stopped selling, is something that you just said and that you've tweeted out before. And I got to say, as a long-term Bitcoin holder, well, first of all, I've never sold a Bitcoin for fiat, but I get that vibe also. I mean, if you held on for this long, you know that the party is just getting started over here. So I do want to clarify one thing for you. And I agree. Everything you said makes sense here, okay? Now, I've been through these cycles now. This is my third time or whatever. I mean, 8 since 2013. I've seen the price, go up in 2013, and then 2014 to 15 were not fun years. Of course, I had a strong hand. And then 2017, price goes up, and 2018 and 19 were not fun years. 2022 it shouldn't be a fun year, and I'm prepared for that. And you said this time it's different. Do you not see a correction of any sort in 2022?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the reason I say that is, first of all, because that supply depletion, at least when I say different, doesn't mean that it's never going to come back down, but that this cycle might go further, or we might see like a double pump like we did in 2013. I think the supply shock will be a lot stronger than previous cycles.
Come on, Will, say it with me. Super cycle. Super cycle. Super cycle. Super cycle.
Yeah, it's really hard to predict the future when it comes to predicting the behavior of some of these institutional players. I think they'll tend to not sell as much, but then again, you also have to understand certain funds, at least they can't get over a certain allocation. So, if they take a 5% allocation, Bitcoin doubles, they're up to 10%, and they can't go over 10% for that certain asset. They're going to, by regulatory reasons, they're going to have to trim some of that position to bring it back down. So that may play a part. It's really hard to say, but I don't think that we're going to see another 80% correction or something like that. I see the possibility of us having another kind of bear cycle, but then again, I also see that the possibility of us going all the way. But then that's probably what people said in 2017 that were caught up in the euphoria then. So you just got to be prepared for either way. I certainly won't be taking any chips off the table once we get up to 200, 300,000. It's just not I don't think that's a smart move. I think there's a fair chance that this thing's not going to come back down.
All right, and real quick before we go to Joe on his take on supply shock and everything, what were you doing in 2017? Did you know about Bitcoin in 2017, Will?
No, man, I had no clue. I was just doing stupid stuff as a kid. I remember seeing like a Bitcoin ATM in the mall or something like that, but I really didn't get into it until I think I made my Twitter account in June, the end of June last year, and then I found Bitcoin Twitter, and that's when I really started, listening to different podcasts and stuff like that.
Wow. So just 2020 was your debut in your interest in Bitcoin started in 2020 of all years. That's good. You were really productive during this time that so many kids were forced to be unproductive. Wow.
I think being stuck in the house it played a big part of it. I think if I was at school doing all my college stuff, I don't think nearly as far into it as I have.
Good. You took advantage of the situation. All right, Joe, your take on supply shock and OGs never selling their Bitcoin and and is it different this time?
Yeah, I think really great analysis by Will. I think that's astute, and I think it's also always remarkable. It just fascinates me that Bitcoin is really first asset we get to have these legitimate discussions about. Nobody knows what the supply of GE shares or like any other like opaque traditional asset looks like. And so even the fact that we can just kind of deliberate and have this information be out there, I think is really cool. It's one of the things we paid attention to at Unchained is we saw what we called our HODL waves chart, which shows Bitcoin and UTXOs and ranks them by when they last moved. And so you can see kind of those strong hands, see that Bitcoin that's really sat there for some time. And on average, about 60% of Bitcoin doesn't move for a year or more. And I think, like Will pointed out, there was some period in the last few months where I think some of that fraction dipped. Most people were probably selling into that like upper 20K kind of range. But that has stopped, and you're seeing a lot more consolidation. And I think it's because you just have a lot of these new buyers that do just expect it to keep going up. And there's some legitimacy there. I think I do try, as a market participant, I try to be cognizant of my own psychology and the other psychology that's probably happening for others. But there is really something to the amount of supply that's not yet soaked up, whether it's institutions, as Will mentions, that are in the process of making purchases. Also these fund products like ETFs getting approved. There's going to be multi-billion-dollar asset vehicles sitting on lots of Bitcoin. And none of them have started yet. They're at zero. And so on the path to the tens and hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin that are going to go into those vehicles, that's going to soak up more supply. I think does add some kind of fundamental type characteristic to like our, lets us kind of feel good about prices here and feel like there's yet more to run. And I think that the real euphoria hasn't hit because I do see people in Bitcoin like yourself, Adam. We've been scarred. We know that within these cycles we can expect drawdowns. And that's good. I think that's really healthy. The riskiest thing in any market are people not perceiving there's potential risk. And so I think as long as there's people like us, like, we're just slightly measured. It's the euphoric, like New York Times articles headlining everyone's getting rich and you're not, that article couldn't have been a better top signal from like late 2017 than those yahoos and those sweaters and that New York Times headline or something. It's like
everyone's getting hilariously rich or something.
Yeah. You make a good point about reminding everyone that there are downturns, because the people last time that didn't understand that there were downturns, they're not back this time. They threw in the towel, and it's really bad to throw in the towel.
Not all of them. Okay, I didn't know what a market cycle was last cycle. I had no idea. I didn't know that markets go up and down the way they do. I had no clue.
Well, I think
most people
someone we're going to talk about in a second, Lex Fridman. I don't think he knows about market cycles either, but we'll get into that in a second. What is your well, wait, before I ask you this, Brecky, I do want to say there's a great comment in the chat here. The Bitcoin liquidity squeeze will make the GameStop look like a game. Yeah, definitely. The GameStop liquidity squeeze is a freaking game compared to the Bitcoin one. The whole GameStop thing is a big joke, and we won't talk about it. Okay, Brecky, go on with yourself. And people in the chat, do a super chat, get my attention. Do BitcoinMeister, ask some questions. We love you. All right.
What's the question? You distracted me there.
Liquidity squeeze, and will 2022 be different? Will it not be a down year like as some people are? Because I've had plenty, like Anders has been on the show saying he doesn't expect 2022 to be bad. Will actually made a great point. Like it still might go down, but it won't be an 80% drawdown. But what's your take on what we're about to see here this next quarter in terms of Bitcoin shortages? I mean, are we going to hear that term? And just go on with yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think we will. I don't know that we'll see shortages per se. I feel like there's always somebody who's willing to sell at a price, right? It's just, what is that price? Are we going to see a drawdown? I don't know. I mean, it probably won't feel like a drawdown to us. Like if we shoot up to $800,000 and we drop down to $500,000 the next day, like, well, I'll be happy regardless. Like, who gives a shit? But, sorry, I can't say that. So I don't know. But, is this time different? Hell yeah, it's different. Like we've got senators, we've got companies like MicroStrategy. Like the landscape is so much more developed than it was then. Investors are actually way more intelligent and asking the right questions. And something that Will was saying, Will got in like you started paying attention a year ago. When we got in, the Bitcoin content that was available to consume was minuscule. There was like nothing. You can get up to speed in 6 months if you put your head down. Or less time, So we're in the golden age of Bitcoin content right now, and I think if you really want to learn about it, and if you're a smart investor, you will learn about it, and you'll realize what this thing is. Like, will we see some companies with weak hands? Yeah, we will, or we'll see some that for regulatory issues have to sell. But at the end of the day, we're going to the moon, baby. We're going to the moon.
You say investors are more intelligent this time. Well, these NFT prices.
Are those investors or speculators, though?
Okay, good differentiation. And by the way,
I ask Joe a question real quick?
Yes, please.
All right, so I was just wondering, do you think like the derivatives that have kind of really matured over the last year and a half, do you think that's going to play a bigger role in kind of differentiating this cycle from others?
That's a Joe question right there. Go, Joe.
Are the derivatives markets going to play a bigger role in the cycle? I don't really know. I don't have a good answer to that question. I think it's probably yes, but how? I don't know.
Brecky?
Pass.
Pass. Well, okay. The last cycle, everybody was trying to blame the derivatives for the crash. I remember. So I don't believe that. I don't believe they caused it last time. I don't. When it comes down to it, people want the underlying asset and stuff, and I think that makes the biggest difference. And you can play all sorts of games in financialization and everything like that. I think it'll. I mean, it might this time around. It might bring more traditional type of investors in and stuff. But I'm not concerned about it. It's a good question.
I think one thing to note. This has kind of been made popularized by like Preston Pish and Plan B is this whole idea of capturing the arbitrage spreads between the contango between there's a premium right now in the futures price versus the current market spot price. And so you can do this cash and carry trade, and the annualized returns for some, it depends on which platform you're using, but they're like 15% or something like that. And so for people that aren't even interested in Bitcoin, you can come in and capture these spreads. Like this isn't for people that are like hardcore hodlers. These are for like fixed income investors that have negative yielding real bonds right now. And they're looking for some kind of risk-free yield for them to capture. And this is kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. And it's interesting that I don't know what the end game of that contango will be, but you're continually seeing these spreads getting fatter and fatter and fatter, these contracts, which is interesting to me because the futures contracts are trading at a premium, which usually entails that there's some kind of storage cost. Like in commodities, like with oil, for example, like they trade at a premium because there's storage costs, but Bitcoin's a digital asset, so there is no storage cost. So why is it trading at a premium? I really don't understand.
For firms like that, there is a delivery and storage cost, you might argue, like, dealing with keys and custodianship. And so it feels more natural, I think, for those firms to just buy these contracts from prime brokers and folks that they're comfortable with. I mean, those do have some characteristics in the market. Some of those firms are borrowing Bitcoin. So there's a short function there. There's possible short squeezes that come from that. I think, but there's also countervailing things. Like now you have more market participants that have, Bitcoin might be a fraction of their balance sheet, or their Bitcoin exposure might be a fraction of their balance sheet. And if there's issues in the broader macro landscape, a big crash in the S&P 500 or things like that impair their balance sheet on that side, they're going to have to sell Bitcoin, or Bitcoin's been one of the first things they try to liquidate to fill up and cross that gap. So it's definitely really hard to say where there's a majority effect that's going to happen, I think.
Yeah, because Preston Pish has kind of theorized that it's almost like a second halving event where you're seeing more coins get locked up to borrow to take on the arbitrage spread. That for example, like if there's a 50% LTV, you're locking up 2 coins for one that would naturally be locked up. So I don't know. I just find that very interesting. Like you said, I don't know what the end game of it will be, and I don't know. I think it's interesting, and it's hard to see like how, at least from my perspective, like from the on-chain stuff, like I can't see exactly what the extent of this is going on. All I can really look at is kind of like different, like the AUM of. Go ahead.
Of GBTC or something like that. Like that's one that it's been this black hole of Bitcoin, and like an immense pool of borrowed Bitcoin at this point. And Bitcoin liabilities by other institutions out there that put client deposits in there. So what's going to happen as those 6-month lockups come out and things unwind? Don't know.
I'm glad we're getting down this finance rabbit hole here right now. And I got to say, Will, are you a finance major?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And were you a finance major before you got into Bitcoin?
No.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah, you've really learned the subject. I got to give you credit on that. What was your major beforehand?
I was in entrepreneurship, so I started like a small business in my dorm, and then it kind of got shut down due to COVID. And then, dude, everything I'm saying, I'm pretty much just repeating stuff that I've heard from other people. It's not that I'm smart; I'm just good at reciting stuff from other people. I pretty much got everything.
So is everyone else.
You're
We're
not
all winging it. Will just embrace.
No. He's not. You're not giving yourself credit here. You're not doing textbook finance here. You're not just repeating what you learned in the textbook. I mean, this is real life applications. I mean, it's very good, very good. You have a great understanding. I was a marketing major. I was in the business school at Washington University in St. Louis, and I didn't understand the real life connections of finance. I ran away from finance back then. So this is very, very impressive. Very, very good stuff on your part. Okay, but before we move on from and feel free to ask each other questions too. I should have said that at the beginning. And Will, I'm glad you had that question for everyone here on the panel, and everybody in the chat. Feel free to ask these guys questions.
I've got one.
Okay,
Will,
please
have you taken your econ classes yet? Because like I really want to know what it's like having gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I don't know if you've gone down the Austrian economics rabbit hole and like sitting in like a Keynesian economics class and just like wanting to tell the teacher to piss off. Like, what's that like?
Dude, all right. So my micro class, I had taken that like my first semester, my freshman year, so that was before. But yeah, I took my macro class, and it was pretty brutal getting through that and like having to answer the questions. You're like, I don't agree with this, but I got to pick this to get the right answer on this test. It for me, it's very interesting. I don't want to just keep talking about myself, but it's interesting because I feel like I'm learning about this financial system, which I believe is going to be in the past, while my focus is in this other realm. So to me, it's definitely frustrating.
All right, now that we got you talking about college here, I want to read you. There was a Bitcoin Magazine article here. There's an opportunity cost in every decision you make, but choosing to pay a university over buying Bitcoin could cost more than you think. What's your take on that, Will?
Yeah, for sure. That was written by my buddy Nick. He dropped out of college. I think he's been selling everything to stack sats. He used to start his car with a screwdriver because he'd save the money to stack sats. So shout out to Nick. But yeah, man, I think it's something that a lot of people have to consider. I think in the bottom of the bear last time, American HODL was pushing a lot of kids to drop out of college and just take on some kind of easy job. And like my buddy Dylan, I don't know if some of you guys know him on Twitter. I think his handle's like Dill Bitcoinization or something. He dropped out of school and he took on like a construction job. And, instead of spending, like you said, instead of spending that money on school, he's just been able to stack sats throughout the bear market. And now, he's pretty good, in a good situation financially. But, to be completely honest, I'm very fortunate that my parents are able to pay for a portion of my schooling, but I do have to take out, student loans for the remainder of that. So it's something that I'm heavily considering. I'm doing an internship at Bitcoin Magazine over the summer, and I'm going to see how that goes. But I am very interested in possibly doing this full time if it works out. And
will you be at the event in Miami on June 4th and 5th?
Yes, they're having me do, I don't know exactly what. They'll probably like shove me at the registration desk or something like that to check people in. But yeah, I'll be there working the event for sure.
All right, I will meet you there. Joe, I want to tie this in. Your deal with hiring young people. What is your take on what we've just been discussing? I mean, back in the day when I would apply for jobs, you would have to have a college degree. I mean, but now we're living in a completely different realm here. What's going on? So, what's your take on kids? Would you hire someone that doesn't have a college degree?
Hell yes, I don't have one. Yeah,
that like button, big. Okay, continue, please. Sorry.
I dropped out after my freshman year. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I joined a business school because I thought I'd learn about business. And instead, it's like you're trying to learn about how to do a cover letter or resume, and the kinds of things I wanted to put on my resume were deemed like not professional or appropriate or something like that. And so yeah, I think it really shaped how I, as an entrepreneur, evaluate people and talent, because its credentials are often they can really misguide you in terms of like who has really what you need, who has the chops for a particular role. And so people who are self-learners like Will, going out there learning about this stuff on their own, like, yeah, listening to what people are repeating what they're saying, but in that process, Will's building a very strong like mental model for how the world works. And that's all school is like supposed to, that's just the minimum bar it should be doing. It should help. School is there to help people learn how to learn. And so if you already know how to do that, then like, get the fuck out and learn about what you want to learn about. And then instead of like sticking around for, things that you don't believe in or that are like, and I think that's so funny that like you're in a class, it's an economic situation where it's not like chemistry. You can't just say, I don't really believe that, this chemical plus this equals this in this equation. Like that's, but in that economics classroom, there's a right answer to that professor that the question, it's a degree of belief, or like it's really very young, not at all a science. And so just interesting that you have to be in that kind of a classroom learning that supposedly that stuff.
Joe, are you going to be at the Miami Bitcoin Magazine event?
Absolutely, yeah, heck yeah. And
well, I really hope that you can meet Will there. I think everyone agrees. There's a guy that has jobs. Here's a kid that needs a job. Who knows what connections can be made? I'm trying to connect everyone here. Ooh. Anyway, all right. So, Brecky, Your take on college, etc. What we've been talking about.
I don't know. I'm torn. Like Will, I was lucky to have my parents support me. So I'm not overly burdened with debt. I have 2 degrees. I went to undergrad and I got a master's in film. But all that being said, I mean, look, I did benefit from both of those degrees in certain ways. I learned certain things that are useful. I made connections that were useful. The pedigree has helped me, whether it's true or not. People see a degree and they're like, "Oh, wow, you must be smart." It so happens that I am smart. That's besides the point. But everything I've learned that I really value, I got on the job. And so if I had to do it again, I probably would have gone to coding school, learned how to code, went straight to work, that kind of thing. My kids are not going to be forced to go to college. I'm going to force them to learn how to code probably. So yeah, I mean, it depends on your circumstances. I don't want to be one of those people that's like, no college at all. If you know what you want to do before you're going to college, I did not, and I think that was part of the mistake, then great, college could be helpful. But these days, compared to buying Bitcoin, just buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, man. I was 17. I didn't know what I wanted to be at all. So, I mean, I give credit to the kids that are 17, 18, 19 that do know what they want to be, that they're very mature, much more mature than I was. I was not very mature.
There were a few kids in my frat, and they were the ones who were the most driven and knew exactly what they wanted to do. And they were ones who'd taken a year or 2 off before they came to college. I begged my parents. They're like, "No, if you want to go to college at all, you're going to have to go immediately, blah, blah, blah. You'll be behind," all this nonsense. But I think that's a horrible idea. I think everyone should take a year off. They should go work for a year. They should travel if they can, and then figure out what they want to do with their life and then hit the ground running.
Yeah, this last year and over a year has given a lot of youngsters the opportunity to take a year off. I mean, I especially now, I would say, yeah, take a year off if your college is forcing you to take online classes. That's a good point too. And yeah, it does. I was of your parents' mindset back in the day. I just wanted to get it over. I want to start college. It's time to party. I don't want a year off. It's time to party. Anyway, we got Brian Jacato says, since the invention of Bitcoin, most economic majors are now effectively history majors. They just don't know it yet. New Bitcoin economic paradigm going forward. Brian, you're great. You've been on the show before. Best freaking guest in space. That is a great way of looking at it. Okay, so we've talked about university here. That's good, and we talked about supply shock. What else to talk about here? We've got. I'm deciding on my. We could talk about. There's a lot of noise out there. I'm worried to bring up. We'll talk about Mark Cuban, Lex Fridman, talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So Mark Cuban here. All right, Mark Cuban's a smart guy. He's done well. He says 60% Bitcoin, 30% Ethereum, and 10% the rest. It's the closest to a true currency. He says about Ethereum. On the value of his Ethereum holdings, he only expressed regret. I wish I had bought it sooner, but I started buying it 4 years ago. Cuban credited the recent boom on the decentralized finance and non-fungible token industry as his source of excitement about crypto, likening the development of smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain to the internet boom back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Now, I don't want anybody pedestaling this guy, but it was news this week that he spoke of this. On the other hand, I mentioned this on my show on Wednesday, and everybody check out the links below. Watch my Wednesday show. Not enough of you watched the Wednesday show. Lex Fridman is a guy that's very much respected, I don't know, in podcast circles, okay? And we're going to start with Brecky on this. Lex has decided to have Bitcoin guys on the show. He had Nick Carter on the show. He had Pomp on the show. But he also decided to have altcoin people on the show. And one person that he's going to have on the show is, I don't even want to say the guy's name. I mean, he's
Someone talked to him first. He's not going to have him on the show anymore. If we're talking about the scammer that I think we're talking about.
Yeah, the guy who created an ego coin around himself. That people that somehow a lot of his cult members reached out to Lex and somehow convinced. But okay, go for it, because Brecky, you tweeted about this stuff. You tweeted that the Bitcoin maximalists were trying to protect him, and then he fell for this. Now he can have anybody he wants to have on the show. I'm just saying he hasn't lived through a 4-year cycle yet in Bitcoin. And if you live through a 4-year Bitcoin cycle, you see all these guys promoting whatever the latest, creating their own coins, and you can feel people out pretty well. So what's your take on Cuban and on Lex here?
Well, I don't think Cuban understands fiat money. I don't think Cuban understands sound money. I don't think Cuban understands Ethereum. I don't think Cuban understands Bitcoin. I don't think he understands a lot of things. So I wish him the best. He's going to remain a rich person because he's got a lot of fiat wealth, but in a hyper Bitcoinized world, I see his wealth going down. Best of luck, Mark. Enjoy your bananas. Lex is interesting to me, and it brings up a topic that I find interesting, in that there are a lot of people who I think it would be beneficial if they were on the side of Bitcoin. A lot of people may disagree with me and say, "Oh, Bitcoin doesn't need these famous people. Who cares if they like Bitcoin, if they understand Bitcoin or not?" And I agree that Bitcoin itself, Bitcoin the network, doesn't need that. Doesn't need me, doesn't need you, doesn't need any of these rich people or these famous people or these, ultra smart, intelligent people, whatever. Doesn't need them. But I'm most concerned with the cause of getting people involved in Bitcoin. And the more positive thought leaders we have, people who are supporters of Bitcoin, who are bearing the Bitcoin standard flag and waving it around and are intelligent about it. People like Michael Saylor, for example, who, the more mainstream people will listen to and say, oh yeah, maybe I should look into Bitcoin. To me, that's important. I want to get as many people on the lifeboat as we can. And someone like Lex, for example, would be a good ally in that respect. It's been interesting to see kind of the Bitcoin immune system attack him a little bit. And this is a problem I have with some of the plebs out there, that, you can destroy someone's arguments. You can tell them why they're wrong about something, but I don't think you have to be a dick, and I think that's a real problem. And I think those people need to, just be nicer. You can be as toxic as you want. There's good toxicity and bad toxicity. I don't like the bad kind of toxicity.
Okay, very good point. You can be nice. I mean, sometimes it's the freaking Bitcoin Inquisition out there, as I've said. It really is. And you're nodding your head there, Joe. What's your take on your fellow Texan talking about Ethereum as money and just the overall importance or not so importance of having what big names say, and that big names can get confused? Yeah,
I mean, that's part of what makes Bitcoin so philosophical in some ways, in that you kind of you have a lot of people like a Mark Cuban, obviously gets to feel smart, obviously gets to feel like he's had a really strong, good view and grasp on reality, because it's led him to acquire assets and have success and certain trappings. But those are still trappings in a certain way. They still kind of lock your worldview in a certain way. And so I haven't heard him speak about this stuff. I actually don't know how smart he is on these things personally. I just know that's the thing that happens. And I think you do have these Lex Fridmans of the world that are kind of somewhere in the middle there. They are like inquirers. They are like working on. They are pulling a different podcast guest. They're pulling doing 2.5 hours with Nick Carter, and these kinds of things. Like that is really great. And those are people you want kind of getting into Bitcoin. And it's this fun spectrum because, and for me, so many of these things are just inevitable. And you have people like Will who are blank slates, who don't have these same trappings, and yet are trying to develop a clear vision on how the world works and what is sound money and what are sounder economics and what are worthwhile economic principles to believe in. And so I kind of think whatever Mark Cuban thinks doesn't matter, because in 50 years, Will will be around, have a fat stack of sats, I'm sure, and he'll be calling the shots.
All right. Yeah. Will's getting excited about what 2036 halving? Is that even? Yeah. 2036 halving. Will, right? You're pumped about that one.
There you go.
Now, exactly. That's a strong hand. What I don't know, Will, if you have any take on these big names being in or out of Bitcoin. And I do want to say it's well, no, you take it away, Will. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So I would say, when these institutions are going to take a position, they don't really care about what a celebrity is saying. They're going to do due diligence on their own, and they're going to do their own research. They're not going to take someone's word per se. But, for retail and some of these individual investors that aren't, for lack of a better word, sophisticated, they're just going to kind of take they're just going to listen to whatever these celebrities are saying. For example, like Elon Musk tweeting about Dogecoin. I'm sure there were a bunch of people out there that just said, oh, Elon Musk is tweeting about it, so I'm going to buy it because Elon Musk said it, right? And they did no due diligence. And so what I love about this is that Bitcoin is a completely free market. And if you don't do your homework, and for lack of a better word, like if you don't pass the IQ test for Bitcoin, you don't get to have this money in the future. And throughout history, it shows the people who have the money have the power. And so I look at this as a net positive, because the less people that are free thinkers and independent thinkers and critical thinkers that have Bitcoin, the better. Because when we get to the other side of this thing, the people that are the real critical thinkers and independent thinkers are going to be the ones with the money. And they're going to be the new ones that are controlling society when we get on the other end of this. So the longer that we can keep these people that aren't going to do the thinking for themselves and aren't going to do their due diligence out, I think that's a net positive. Although at the same time, you can say that, some of these retail people are being misguided, but, at the end of the day, everybody is responsible for yourself. Nobody's responsible for anybody else. And if you're not taking care of yourself and doing the intellectual homework, your own, you're going to be victim to that. So.
Yeah, personal responsibility is the new counterculture. Just because you score high on an IQ test doesn't mean you're going to score high on that Bitcoin IQ test. I think that's what we could take away with Lex and maybe Mark Cuban. It's weird that Cubans take on Ethereum as money, but that's his thing. It's the closest to a true currency. I mean, Vitalik.
Maybe he's comparing it to fiat currency, which is why he thinks it's like money.
Yeah, but Vitalik wouldn't even say it's the closest to a true currency. I mean, it's just anyway. Let's talk about we mentioned the inevitable that big names are going to get into it. It is inevitable. Real quick, Goldman Sachs is close to offering Bitcoin and other digital assets to its wealth management clients. This is kind of like more from another story about Goldman Sachs. It's inevitable, dudes. Do any of you have anything to say about that, Joe?
I just know that, and part of it's forced by client demand. It doesn't matter what Goldman Sachs leadership thinks about this stuff. They've been getting, they're just, clients are beating down their doors. Or why aren't I in this? Why don't you have something for me in this? And so it's a response to the market.
All right, yeah, that is a really good point. Do the other two guests, do you have anything to say about that? Goldman Sachs, people always love to talk about big bad Goldman Sachs. So many people feel so validated that Goldman Sachs trashed Bitcoin. They put up that tweet with Goldman Sachs like trashing Bitcoin in 2016, and now Goldman Sachs praising it. It was inevitable, dude. You don't need to be validated by this. That's what I'm saying. But Brecky or Will, do you have anything to say about it?
Brecky, you can go first.
Not too much. I mean, I like you said, it was inevitable. I knew this was going to happen when, like, an ex-Goldman friend of mine, I was talking to him, and he was asking me about GBTC, and I was like, why don't you just buy the underlying? And he's just like, no, I don't want to deal with all that, And I was like, if there are guys like him who are going to GBTC, like Goldman Sachs, all these banks, they're going to be offering something eventually. Like, it's coming, and now it's here.
All right, and Will, you don't have to say anything about Goldman if you don't want to. Will, if you have anything.
I just think it's interesting because we're seeing what essentially is game theory, and FOMO. We've seen that on the retail side. You see the price going up, you're like, oh, everybody else is getting in on this, so I need to. It's the same concept, but on another scale. So you're saying, okay, Fidelity's coming out with their own custody solutions. We've got Grayscale, and we've got all these other players coming in talking about they're going to make some kind of move in the space. So if let's say, nobody else was planning on doing anything with Bitcoin, but just the fact that you have a couple people that did puts that thought in everybody else's mind that, oh, if they're doing it, other people must be doing it. Therefore, I need to do it. So it becomes a self-fulfilling thing, which I think is very interesting. And then another thing, like Joe was saying, it doesn't matter what, Jamie Dimon talking about. This is about Goldman, but Jamie Dimon saying, oh, Bitcoin's a scam and stuff. JP Morgan is going to have to come out with some kind of Bitcoin solutions because their client is going to say, hey, look, I want exposure to Bitcoin. If you don't give me exposure to Bitcoin, I'm taking my money to Fidelity. And so it doesn't matter what they think about it because people are going to vote. People say you vote with your money, your vote, and your feet, right? And so people are going to vote with their money. And when the first $1 billion comes out the door, going over to Fidelity's custody solutions, they're going to say, hold on a second. I need to get my stuff together here and get my clients some kind of exposure to this, or else I'm going to lose another $1 billion. So that's the way I see it.
All right, the competition, keeping it real. I like it. All right, real quick, LSG Lightspeed Gallery sent $4.99. Thank you. He said, thanks again. Always a pleasure. Thank you, dude. Thanks for the support. Pub Lord Hoddle, he's in the house. He's a great one. Always a great show. A reminder, and he sent $5. A reminder to everyone that 210,000 block theory remains undefeated. I agree. Keep that strong hand through at least one halving. What he's talking about, you can subtract 210,000 blocks from any day, and Bitcoin in terms of fiat is worth more than it was 210,000 blocks ago. The theory remains true, so you have to think in 210,000 blocks from now, if you're watching this in 2015, that the Bitcoin is worth more in terms of fiat. All right, Joe, tell us about the jobs that you got going on over there at your company, and what's up over there.
Thanks for the opportunity. Like a lot of folks, probably, we're hiring developers, looking for engineers, folks to help improve our product and client experience around the product. Also on the client front, we're working on hiring some client services folks, as well as some people in accounting and HR. So we raised some money recently, and we've been applying that into growth and keeping up with demand, really making as much hay out of this bull market as we can. We're a Bitcoin-focused company. We're aligned with Bitcoin's values. We build our products to be and really embrace the permissionless properties of Bitcoin as much as possible. And so it's a real fortune. I know Swan has this going too. It's like there's a lot of people out there that have boring jobs and want to work in Bitcoin, want to work like they're working for Bitcoin and advancing Bitcoin. And I think shops like Swan and Unchained are some of the places, the few unique places you can actually do that.
All right, now I linked to below. It says jobs. It's a tweet that talks about the Unchained jobs. You can go to the Unchained Capital site, obviously. You can go follow Joe, and just the jobs are out there, people. And I'm really glad you are hiring. And what's your take? What's better, Austin or Miami, Florida or Texas? I asked Phil this last week, so now it's your turn.
Austin, based on its critical mass of people here, we've got a lot of Bitcoin developers. We've got the best Bitcoin meetup in the world. And so, yeah, it's really happening here. Miami's nice. I'll get to see it here soon in a couple months. But I think for Bitcoiners, truly, like Austin's where it's at.
All right. And I want to ask real quick, there was another news story about the digital euro. That the digital euro is coming soon. Well, no, they're going to start experimenting with it soon, but she won't be able to implement it for like 4 years. Anyone want? It was a news story this week. Anyone want to say anything about that? Because I said I would bring it up. All right. No one has. Oh, wait. Someone said something.
Someone said nah.
Yeah. It's noise, dudes. It's noise. Here's what I'm going to tell you. When they eventually get it off, when they eventually make it real, the FUD will be like, this is better than Bitcoin. And that is like totally 80%er mindless FUD. You will be tracked. They can turn you off. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin whatsoever. And then another thing, what is, in terms of crypto noise, I just want to ask the panel members, what is this Bitclout thing? Like, they sell tokens based on like personalities that don't approve of them making tokens about them. Does anyone know about this? I mean, it shows that it's getting frothy if something called Bitclout is out there now.
Yeah, I know about it because someone DM'd me saying that I was on there and that somebody had bought tokens of me already or something. But in order to even claim them, which I don't want to do, you have to tweet about their shitcoin. It's like a VC experiment. They're just trying to mess with people. Like, it's literally designed to piss off Bitcoin maximalists. Like, it's interesting, but it's stupid.
Okay. All right. We've covered everything here. Brecky, your closing remarks. Anything that was you forgot to say? Anything you wanted to add?
Just come find Swan over at Bitcoin 2021. We're going to have a huge dome and a big old Swan lounge there. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you don't know about Swan, go to swanbitcoin.com, shoot me a DM. Happy to tell you all about it. Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
All four of us are going to be there. Wow. I mean, that last week it was the same thing. I bring you the best guests in the space, and they go to what will become the best event ever. That is June 4th and 5th. In Miami. Okay, Will, what are your closing statements here? Anything that was forgotten?
No, man, I was just gonna, just add on to what you were just saying. I was talking to the CEO of Bitcoin Magazine last week, and he was saying there's gonna be I think 10,000 people there, and they're trying to get the capacity raised. So, definitely consider coming out to the Bitcoin conference in June. There'll be plenty of Bitcoiners there and people that you wouldn't otherwise be able to network with, and it should be a blast. They have all kinds of different stuff that you can do. I think the problem will be not having enough time to do as many things as you want to do.
Yep.
Included with, and there's going to be a bunch of satellite events as well. Things that you can't do on the premise. If you get what I'm putting at, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of fun stuff to do.
Oh wow, you're a college kid. Party on, pound that like button. How many people did they say? Did you say how many people they want to try to expand it to?
Don't quote me on this, but I think they said roughly 10,000.
Whoa! That sounds like a lot, and that would be awesome if it's really freaking true, man. That would make the local news. I think maybe, who knows?
I think it's the biggest event since the Super Bowl, as far as people congregating together. So it's a big deal.
Because Bitcoiners aren't scared. Bitcoiners know what real life is all about and getting out there, baby. And it was great. I hung out with some Bitcoiners in Miami when I was down there. So, and they weren't scared. All right, so we'll end it with Joe. You've got the final word here.
Awesome. Yeah, a couple things to plug. Just there's an Austin BitDev, Austin Bitcoin meetup happening April 15th here at Unchained offices downtown Austin. Love to see folks there. Love to see folks at Bitcoin 2021. If you're a Bitcoiner, want to improve your security and curious about multisig, check us out, unchained.com. And also we have some loans and other cool products you should check out too.
All righty, that is the end. Thank you, everyone. Best freaking guest in the space. You were awesome. Thank you, people who contributed and all your questions that were out there today, people. I'm Adam Meister, the BitcoinMeister, the DisruptMeister. It's opening day. I think the game is starting right now up in Boston. Go freaking Orioles, as usual. But remember, don't get distracted by sports and everything. Focus sometimes, whatever traditions in your city, whatever you might get into. And I just want to say Shabbat Shalom for everyone. And these last few days of Passover, everybody have a good Passover. I am out of here. Thanks a lot. Pound that like button. See you guys soon. All right.